Hello, hello, and welcome back to RareRoo Crafts. I'm Sarah, and today I'm on to share with you this lovely little dangle project. I'm going to use them to either put on my handbag or maybe I will put them on my crochet project bags, that sort of thing. But you could put them on pocket letters, you could use them as key rings. There's all sorts of uses for these, and I just thought they were really, really cute. So I'm using some of the stuff that has been sent to me by BB Crafts. So if you watched the latest video of haul video of things that they sent me, you'll see that they sent me a load of these Mayuki seed beads. So these are the Delicas, and I got 3 different colours of the Delicas from them. I've popped them into these little cases to keep them safe. But they come in bags, and I picked up 3 colours, and I've used all 3 in this piece here. So as you can see, I've done this really lovely sort of chevron type pattern, and I've used all 3, and they're really nice because they are very, very even in size and shape, so you get a really nice finish to your bead weaving with these beads. And then I've made some dangles and things and had added them onto the bottom. So I thought I would sort of share a little bit of this with you. So I'm making another one here. Now I'm not going to take you through step by step how to do square stitch. There's loads of fantastic videos on the internet that show you how to do square stitch. I will do a little bit, but I'm not going to sort of take you through the whole process because A, it would be really, really lengthy, and B, I'm not the best person to teach you. You know, I've only just started doing this myself. This is only the 2nd or 3rd piece of square stitch that I've done for myself. But it's turning out okay. Now for both pieces I have designed my own pattern. There are loads of free square stitch patterns on the internet. If you go onto Pinterest, if you just put square stitch patterns, free square stitch patterns into Google, there are tons and tons of free patterns out there. But I like to create my own. I've just used some graph paper, but there's also some free papers that you can print out. So I will put the links to the free papers along with all of the beads and all of that sort of stuff from BB Crafts, and if I can find any of the other elements that I've used that are out of my stash, but if I can find something similar on BB Crafts, I will list that as well for you. So I decided that I wanted some flowers in this piece, on this one. So I took some just plain squared paper, and I drew out first of all the size that I wanted my strip to be. So you could also do this on a loom, and this is very much like bead weaving on a loom, but I don't have a bead weaving loom, so I sort of had a look at how to do this type of weaving without a loom, and square stitch was the answer. So I've drawn out, I wanted mine to be 29 beads long by 11 beads across. I like to have odd numbers because then you always get a centre square, and if you are wanting to do something that's sort of very symmetrical, so this one is obviously symmetrical, you know, and that red bead right in the centre there, that is the centre bead, and then it all sort of pans out from that centre bead. Then obviously having a centre spot marked is important. It wasn't so much for this one because I haven't gone for a symmetrical pattern on this one. So the flower is fairly symmetrical. In fact, I think it's completely symmetrical, but the bits around it weren't so much. So so it didn't matter so much with this one, but it did help me in terms of sort of drawing out the size and shape of my flower. So I started out again finding that centre point by drawing a line down the 6 and a line down the 16, and that obviously where they intersect shows me what is my centre square. So I started that as being the centre point of my flower, and then I've just gone at it with some pens and had a bit of a play. I had a few attempts to find something that I liked, but I thought this was quite cute. So that's my design that I'm working to, and it's very much like working to a cross stitch pattern. It's like counted cross stitch. You're going to follow this pattern along. I'm doing it in rows. Now I've done them slightly differently. So on this one, the thread bridges on the side are actually visible. I don't know whether the camera will pick it up. just about. So you can see the holes in the beads on this one, and therefore you can see the thread that goes from bead to bead, and that's called the thread bridge. And in things like brick stitch, you actually sew into the thread bridge, whereas in square stitch you don't, you sew into the beads. On this one, I've done it the other way, so that you don't see the thread bridges on the beads at all. You won't see any thread bridges on this piece at all, because they're all hidden in the side piece, because the thread bridges are on the top of this one, and that's where the ribbon clasps are going to go. So you won't actually see the thread bridges, which is nice because you don't see the thread bridges. However, it's depending on what you're looking for, because this one, the fabric is much more sort of flexible, and it's a bit like sort of belt type thing, whereas this fabric has woven up much more stiffly, which again, that's going to work really nicely for what I want for the key ring, and for the bag tag, which is what I'm going to use it for. I'm going to use it for a tassel on my crochet bag. But if you were wanting to do it as a bracelet, say, you might prefer to go for that way, because it will just mould and sit to your skin a bit nicer. And it doesn't matter that you can see the thread bridges really, because I still think it looks beautiful. So all I'm going to do is I've been working away obviously on this one. What I'll do is I'll bring the camera down a little bit, and I'll lock the focus. So hopefully it won't keep zooming in and out, and you'll be able to see what I'm doing. So square stitch is just that. It is square stitch. So you are permanently stitching round in a square. So what you've got to think about is, where is my thread coming from? So at the moment, I've just finished coming down these two beads. So in order to set up for the next bead, which is going to be here, I just need to pull my thread back up through that gold bead. So then I'm looking at my pattern, which I've got to the side of me here, and I can see that I've just done this bead here. That's the one I've just put on. So now I need to put a red bead on. So I'm going to pick up a red bead, and I'm going to come back down through the top two beads next to where I'm stitching, so that these are the beads that that's the bead I've just put on. And again, we're going to go in a square. So I've come up here, across there, down here. So now I'm going to come back through here, and I'm going to come back up through the gold bead and out through that red bead. Now that's left me with my thread up here coming out of that red bead, and I'm already set up ready to put another bead on there. Now according to my pattern, that needs to be a green bead. So I'm going to pick up a green bead, and I'm going to come down through the red bead, and because I want it to be a square, I'm only going to come down through that red bead like so, and then I'm going to come up through the gold and the red. So that's the gold bead below and the red bead I've just put on, because again I'm thinking about that square. I'm always wanting everything to sort of work in a square. I'm going to come back down through the green bead I've just put on and the red bead below it. And that's now stitched nicely into place. Now I just need to set myself up for the next bead. So I'm going to come up through the white bead, which is the end bead in this row, just so that my thread is in the right place to pick up one of the white beads. And I've used all different sort of very pale white beads in this one, so that it's not just white, it's a little bit sort of mild. It's got a bit of a mild effect to it. So again, I've come across down the green and the red, and I'm going to come back up through those two white beads on the end there. Okay, so now I've got one more row to go, and this row is all in the whites. So I know that I need 11, so all I'm going to do to start with is I'm just going to pick out, because the beads that I'm using for this one is like a little multicolour one. It's just one I've had for ages in my stash, but there's some in there are pink and things, and I don't want those. So I'm just going to count out 11 beads. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And I'm not sort of choosing what colours I want. I'm just, other than, you know, not missing out the pink ones that I don't want, I'm just randomly grabbing at the pale ones. Okay, so I've got my 11 beads there ready to work from. Just move that down slightly. So, because I'm coming back up onto a new row, you always start a new row with 2 beads. So I'm going to pick up 2 of these beads. I'm coming out of, my thread is coming out of the top white bead there. So I'm going to bring it down through the green bead below. Like so. And I'm just going to pull my thread, and you'll see it sort of pulls the beads into place. You can just use your needle just to knock them into place. And then I'm going to come back up through the 2 white beads to the side there. And then I'm going to come back down the white bead and the green bead. Now don't worry if they're not sitting perfectly flat. You will find that as you put the other beads in, this one will start to sit flat, and you can see on the end, if I can get my camera to focus, world's worst camera. There you go. You can see on the end there, this bead isn't quite sitting flat, but when you go on to the next row, it pulls it in flat, and on your last bead, you can do a couple of extra sort of rows of stitching just to pull that one flat. So don't worry about it. Don't spend ages trying to pull them straight. They do pull themselves straight. So obviously I don't need to look at my pattern now because I know I'm just doing white beads all the way across here. So I am just thinking about that square all the time and making sure. Now you can flip your work if you want to, if that makes it easier for you, so that you're always working left to right or right to left, whatever works for you. I've sort of got used to it now, and I can work both ways. All I think about all the time is which way do I need my thread to go to create that square effect. So with that one, obviously I'm going round in my square like that, and then once that's secured in, I want to come left now and come up through this next bead to pop my next bead on and get that in place. So I'll just finish off to the end of here, and then I'll show you how I make it into a charm. Okay, so I have finished, and all I've done is take the thread and just run it up and down through various places on the beadwork, just so that obviously my tail doesn't come unwoven at any point. And then I've got one of these which is a thread zapper, and it's got a little tip on the end that gets hot. You can just snip it with scissors, but I've got one of these, so all I do is press the button and just touch the tip to the thread, and it just seals the end, and it just stops any sort of frayed edges or anything, because it melts it, because it's nylon beading thread, it just sort of melts it slightly. So there we go. Right, I'm going to just come back up a little bit now. So that's my little piece all finished, and as you can see, I've got my lovely little pattern with my flowers. And I've got some little mini flowers and then some bigger flowers, and I can put this any which way round I like. I can have any which way I like, being my top, my bottom, my front, my back, whatever. So in order to turn it into the charm bit, I'm going to need a couple of ribbon clasps, one of those, I think it's a lobster clasp. I need some, if I can get hold of them, some beads, so I've got some, what are they called, ball-ended pins, like jewellery pins, eye pins, whatever you want to call them. I've got a selection of beads, and I've just picked colours that go with what is in the, the pattern in my beaded piece, in my bead woven piece. So I've got this lovely sort of stone look bead there, a little pearl, and then just some little glass bicones and things. I've got a couple of charms in the same metal as the fittings, got a little heart and a little flower. I thought the flower went quite nicely with the pattern that I've created. And then I've got some 4mm and 8mm jump rings. I just need one of the 8mm, and then the rest I'm going to use 4mm. If I can get the bead out, the jump ring out. There we go. So I need one of those and then a few 4mm. So all I'm going to do to start with, move everything around a little bit. I'm just going to grab some of my jewellery tools. Bear with me. I'm back. I couldn't find my pair of my pliers that I wanted. So I'm just going to straighten out my head pins a little bit. That's the word I was looking for, head pins. So these head pins have got a little ball on the end. I just like that look. You could use eye pins and put another little dangle on. You could just use flat head pins, whatever you want to use. So I've got those. So to start with, I'm going to start by just making the little dangly pieces. So all I'm going to do is pick some beads and make little dangles. So that is, you know, simply a case of putting various beads onto your head pin. And then I am going to need around those pliers, which I've left over there. There we go, got them. Just slightly higher than where that bead stops. If you were to pull everything down, you're going to make a turn, an angle, a right angle. And you want a little bit of space still left between the top of that bead and where that bend is, and that's because you want to wrap your wire. So holding my pliers, my round nose pliers, I'm going to push my wire up, over and down. I'm not taking my pliers out, I'm just letting go and twisting them so that they're now pointing upwards. And then what that does is it means that I've got my pliers in a position where I can wrap what's left of this wire. So I'm going to move it to the other hand and take that wire and wrap it around the exposed wire above that bead, like that. And I'm going to get my flush cutters and just snip off the excess material there. And then with my chain nose pliers, I'm just going to push that wire in a little bit so that it's all nice and neat. And I'm not going to catch myself on it. And you can also use your round nose pliers at this point to just tidy up that little loop. And there you go. So that's one of my dangles. So I'm going to do another 3 using all the different beads that I've got here. I do try to make them so that they're different sizes, different lengths, just because it adds a little bit of visual interest and you haven't got everything hanging at exactly the same height, which always looks nice. So exactly the same. Just going to do a little bit of wrapping. That one's not as tight as I would like it to be, but it's okay. It's not fine jewellery at the end of the day. It's a little charm to go on my crochet bag. And again, I'm just going to snip the excess away and use my chain nose pliers to just flatten that out a bit. Straighten up my little loop. There we go. So I'll do the others and then I'll come back. Okay, so I've got my 4 little dangles there now. So I need to put my ribbon clasps on. Now my ribbon clasps are not actually quite long enough, unfortunately. I need 18mm and I've only got 16. So I've got to make do, and I'm just going to centralize them over the beadwork. I have got some more on the way, but they didn't arrive in time. So unfortunately. So all I'm doing is centralising that up over where I want it, and then using my nylon pliers, I'm just pushing that ribbon clasp together. And you just want the little teeth on the ribbon clasp to catch on the top of those beads so that it's not going to come away. You don't want to press too hard, because what can happen is you can crack your beads, and obviously you don't want to shatter a bead. And I will say it was slightly easier on the other piece, and I don't know whether that's because it was able to catch on the thread bridges again. Not sure, but it definitely was a little bit easier on the other piece. So I'm probably going to have to fiddle around with this a little bit. So I'm just going to pause while I go and fiddle around, because what I don't want is that where it's just going to slide straight off. So I think what I need to do is just have a bit of a play with it and get the teeth of my ribbon clasper, if I can speak, lined up with exactly where I want it on my, so that the teeth are sort of either side of the beads, so it can grip onto the piece a little bit better. And like I say, do it without it. Ooh, I thought I'd bust a bead then, but I haven't. Thankfully, there you go, that's tighter. So I'll do the other end and then I'll be back. There we are. So I've got a ribbon clasp on either end now. So I am now going to start putting together my piece. So I'm going to take some of these jump rings, and I'm going to open them up. You open up a jump ring side to side. I'm sure most people know that. I'm going to put one on either end, like so. Is that how I did it? Just having a look now. Yes, I did. Second guessing myself. Okay, like so. There we go. Now, my clasp is going to go up the top there, but because it's quite a small jump ring to hold that big chunky clasp on, I am actually going to use 2 jump rings. I'm going to put one and then I'm going to put another one on, and that's just because then if one jump ring fails, hopefully the other one won't. I mean, obviously you have still got, it's all attached to the ribbon clasp just via one jump ring, but that is what it is. There we go. It would be better if that bottom one was soldered, but I don't do soldering, so again, I'm just going in through the jump ring that I've just put on the ribbon clasp, and then I'm attaching the whole, oops, didn't work as it was supposed to. Put it on the clasp and then on the ribbon clasp jump ring, like so. And there you can see I've now got 2 jump rings attached to the one jump ring at the bottom there, which goes onto the clasp, and it just feels a little bit more sort of sturdy. Then onto the jump ring that we've put on the bottom, I'm going to put the 8mm jump ring, but before I do that, I am just threading on some of these beads, some of these little green bicone beads. So I've put a bicone bead on, popped it on the other jump ring, and then I'm putting the second bicone bead on, like that. And then I'm just going to close that jump ring up. So now I've got a 4mm jump ring, an 8mm jump ring, and we've got the 2 beads on that 8mm jump ring, like that. I'm just pushing them up to the top. I'm going to lay that down for a second, and then on the top of every single one of these dangles that I've made, I'm going to place a jump ring, and then I'm going to put it on the 8mm piece, like so. Just sort of thinking about, you know, how you want things to sit. So you've got things sort of sat in the order you want them sat in. So I'm just going to thread all of those on like so. Just close those jump rings up. Just a case of making sure that the jump rings are fully closed. I don't think I've closed that one there properly. So otherwise you'll lose your dangles and you don't want that. So I'll do all of those, and I'm also going to put a jump ring on the top of my charms. I might put probably a little chain of jump rings, probably 3 jump rings, and then I'll attach them on. So I'll do all of that and then I'll come back and show you the finished piece. And there we are, all finished. So I've attached all of my little dangles that I made and my 2 little charms, just with jump rings. And that's obviously my little 8mm jump ring with the little crystals on it. And then that's my bead woven piece. So you can see that they've come out slightly different sizes, and I think that's just because of the way I've woven them, because obviously this one you can't see the thread bridges and this one you can, so I've woven them slightly differently. But I like them both just the same. Like I say, they have got a slightly different feel because that one's much more flexible, that one's much more rigid, but actually for a keychain that works quite nicely, the sort of rigidness of that one. But yeah, I love them. I think they are super, super cute. I just think that what I like about them more than anything is that you can do whatever you want. You can create your own patterns to weave. I do really like the beads, the BB Craft beads, because they are really, really regular. Some of the ones that I've got that aren't BB Craft, so the white ones and the metallic ones are not, and the green ones actually aren't BB Craft ones, and particularly those metallic ones, really, really uneven in shape and size, so that's a little bit frustrating when you're bead weaving. So I would always go for the ones that I know are going to be really regular in shape and size. But it turned out beautifully just the same, and I love them both. So that's what I have created using the Mayuki Delicas sent to me by BB Crafts. I will, as I said, I will link in the description box everything that I can find on their site that might be useful. I'll see if they've got any of the like Nymo type thread. I use this one that I got off of Ali. But I'm sure they probably do something similar on BB Craft, so I'll have a look and see if they do. And I will link that in the description box. So that's it from me for now. I hope you've enjoyed having a look at how I created these beautiful dangles, charms, purse charms, whatever you want to call them. And I will be back to spend some time with you all again very, very soon in another crafty video. Bye for now.